Everything begins in a different world. In the Dacian dynasty, within the imperial palace, the emperor has died. The dumbest, most ill-mannered, neglected and loser son has ascended to the throne. This is Tu Ye, and it was supposed to be another brother who took the throne. He only got this position because of some corrupt politicians who wanted to put him there. Scratching his head, the protagonist wonders why he had to become this massive loser. Obviously, he was transmigrated from Earth, where he worked editing videos of girls dancing. He didn't exactly love that job until on his laptop a message popped up asking which dynasty he would go to if he could travel. But he just said that was a stupid question, and started a keyboard war, arguing that the past was garbage. There were no discounts on anything. Everything was harder, you could catch a disease and die, and besides, there were no girls dancing on screens. But now, sitting on the throne, he wonders if this is some kind of joke. So he who hates this whole dynasty thing ended up in a place like this. However, the bracelet on his arm begins to glow. A voice says it is the artificial intelligence system called Ben, and it can be called Ben. The protagonist is startled. Apparently, he's not experienced with reincarnations. The system then gives him his mission, which is quite simple. He just needs to let the Sen dynasty be completely destroyed, and he will return to his world. Meanwhile, the white-haired girl wonders what this useless guy is thinking. Normally he smiles when he looks at her, but today something is different. Tu Ye then turns to the side, wondering who she is, and in his mind various attributes appear. The system says she is one of his concubines, basically meant to keep an eye on what he was doing. He could see the stats of anyone related to his objective. The system informs him that her name is Yaosu, and basically she serves to spy on him. She's wondering if she's seeing something strange, or if he's looking at her differently. Scratching his chin, he knows that this beautiful woman is just there to spy on him, but her charm is undeniably strong. She wonders if he has seen through her disguise skills, because it seems like he has noticed. Suddenly, someone calls out to him. Beside him, a long-haired man says he seems a bit distracted and asks what's on his mind. Tu Ye already knows this guy must be one of the traitors who made him ascend to the throne. Studying the stats, the man has a 94 in intelligence and is the prime minister of the Chen dynasty. Obviously, he was part of the plan to put Tu Ye on the throne to use him as a puppet. Nearby was another minister, Xiao, who had blood power and immense influence in this place, and was also Xiaosu's father. While the girl tries to understand why he's acting differently today, he's more concerned about how huge these guys' attributes are. Ben Xiao points something out to him, and asks if he's worried that the throne he sits on won't be stable. Tu Ye responds that he actually wants the throne to be unstable, and that soon the entire country will perish. Xiaosu was impressed that he responded this way to her father's provocation. Xiaosu comments that the boy must be uneasy since his brother named Tusu, who should have ascended the throne, is out leading troops. Tu Ye now understands why he took the throne, and how these men are manipulating the situation. Xiaosu reminds him that they are disobeying the laws and imperial decree by placing the boy on that throne. He knocks on the emperor's coffin and says it's fine, because it won't open and the emperor won't kill him. However, the same can't be said for Tusu. Besides, news of the emperor's death hasn't spread yet. He shows the jade seal and says they better act quickly and use it so that his brother Tusu dies and joins the former emperor. Now Tu Ye realizes they want him to use the imperial seal to command the entire country to kill his brother, so he can't lose the throne. This way, even as king of everything, he'll still be a puppet of these two men. It's sad to know that the emperor's two most trusted people plotted all this before his body even cooled. But Tu Ye doesn't want to get involved in all this drama. Not to mention, he has a beautiful spy he needs to be very careful with. He wonders what he's going to do in this whole situation. He then glances at the jade seal in Xiao's hand. He snatches it while thinking that this guy won't control him like that. The man Xiao is asking Tu Ye what he's talking about. The protagonist knows that if he himself dies, the Chen dynasty will become unstable, and that way he'll complete his mission. He puts his hand on Xiao's face and says that now that he has the seal, he decides who lives or dies. Xiaosu is confused. She never imagined he was bold enough to confront her father like this. He asks Yaosu to go against him while she's frightened by his audacity. Maybe the foolish way he acted until now was all just a disguise. And now that he has the imperial seal in his hands, he holds all the power. Xiao Su warns him that he's being arrogant, and even before the ascension, he had the power to put him on the throne, and also to take him off. Tu Ye says to just kill him. He knows this guy has 77 martial points, so it will be easy for him to be killed. The man tries to approach, saying he'll strangle him to death, while his daughter tries to tell him to calm down. At that moment, Tan Yuan steps in and tells everyone to calm down, since their goal there is the same. Tu Ye notices that this guy is much calmer. To irritate him, he'd need to stir things up even more. He is startled, and the jade seal falls to the ground. Immediately, Xiao Tu yells, asking what he did, acting clueless. Tu Ye apologizes, saying it slipped. He knows that this seal represents the fate and authority of the entire Chen dynasty. It's how the emperor issues commands in this world. Breaking something like this is the ultimate offense, and he knows these men won't have the patience to tolerate it. Seeing Chen fuming, he already senses that death is approaching. But Chen Yuan is using every bit of strength in his body to do nothing. Xiao reaches out his hand, but when he's about to say something, Tan Yuan stops him, saying that His Majesty is just playing. Now that he sits on the throne, the entire world belongs to him. So a piece of jade is insignificant. What's broken is broken, and it's no big deal. Besides, it's getting late, so they would discuss this tomorrow. With that, the two start to leave, but Tu Ye calls out to them. He says that the emperor and common people are equal before the law, so he should be executed. But the two simply ignore him. The scene shifts to a room where Zhu Zhao says they need to find a way to get rid of Tu Ye. Chuan asks if he doesn't realize the consequences of eliminating the boy. Shu says he's becoming a coward, and still has the nerve to call that kid Your Majesty. But his friend steps closer and tells him to stop being foolish, because Tu Su is with the troops outside. If they killed Tu Ye, they would obviously be investigated, and surely executed. Unfortunately, when the boy broke the seal, they lost their greatest bargaining chip. Now the only thing they can rely on is his ascension to the throne. Choose to use Asiv of Halls if he's suggesting that Tu Ye broke the seal on purpose to prevent them from killing his brother. Chuan says he's certain of it. Before they were competing for the throne, but now that he's already ascended, it's better for him to have a good relationship with Tu Su. Moreover, if they pressure the boy too much, he could make a deal with Tu Su, bring his military power here, and wipe them both out. This way, their plan would obviously fail, and they would both be executed, something they can't risk at this point. Tu Ye will try to maintain a triangular relationship to control all sides. Xiao Ku laughs, and says Chuan is overthinking it. That child doesn't have the brains to plan that far ahead. However, Tan Yuan brings up how Tu Ye said that the emperor and common people are equal before the law. That was a phrase spoken by the former minister Balo Singo 100 years ago. He rose to the top of the world alongside the emperor, but when he lost the emperor's trust, the poor man was dismembered. Quoting a phrase that perfectly fits their current situation as a clear sign of Tu Ye's intentions. Xiao replies that he won't bow to this child, who only relies on his brother Tu Su's military strength. Even if the order wasn't issued with the Jade Seal, he will send someone to kill Tu Su. Xiao just watches. He knows they support Tu Ye, because he seemed like the easiest one to control among all the emperor's sons. Suddenly, he starts laughing to himself, saying that the late emperor really left behind incredible descendants. The scene then shifts to our boy, calmly sleeping in his bed, but in reality, he's already completely bored with this world. The food is bad, the games are worse, the music they play is awful, and he doesn't recognize any of the characters. There's nothing to watch without a phone, computer or anything. He's going to die. However, he notices something beside him, and when he turns, it's Xiao Shu. I'll just call her Shu to avoid confusing her with her father, Zhu Zhao. While she is Yu Zhe Shu, blushing, she says that as a servant, she must always stay close to him in his chambers. He pauses for a second and immediately turns red, saying he takes back everything he said about this place. Well, some time passes, and it seems our boy no longer even remembers what video games and phones are. He thought he'd be one of those protagonists who does nothing, but our guy is even stretching his back after all this. She then notices the suspicious hairpin she's wearing, and he already imagines this could be a perfect way for him to return to his world. Pouring a drink, he then calls out Xiao Shu's name, and asks if by any chance, she's a spy sent by her father to stay by his side. Her expression changes instantly, and she mutters to herself that it's impossible she's been exposed. A bit awkwardly, she asks what he's talking about, and says she doesn't understand. But he simply responds that he doesn't care about her relationship with Zhu Zhao. He takes a sip, turns away, and says he knows very well she was placed beside him to monitor him. He warns that he loves this game they're playing, because being emperor without it would be too boring. However, she's frightened, wondering how long he's known this, and if the fact that he's revealing it now means he's tired of this game. He then takes another sip of wine, and says this is truly intoxicating. He collapses onto the table, pretending to faint, thinking this is finally the perfect chance for her. Shu slowly starts removing her hairpin. Now that she's been exposed, she's lost her value to both him and her adoptive father. The only way for her to redeem herself now is to go through with this. Gradually she approaches, while he casually hums a little tune, but then the system sends a message about a point objective. These points were based on political, economic, military and cultural values, and any other indicators of the Chan nation's success. Once the nation's total value drops below 0, the mission is considered complete. At that moment, he starts with 1,000 points. That's when the fool realizes that if he dies now, it doesn't mean the mission will be completed. The problem is, she was already closing in, ready to strike his neck, and now he doesn't want to die in such a pointless way. The girl is certain she's being tested, but she can't miss this opportunity. She decides to take the risk, but right at that moment, he turns and grabs her arm. A tear escapes her eye, thinking she's been tricked by his schemes once again. He says that was way too close, but she pulls out the hairpin and breaks free, saying she still has a chance, only to stupidly trip and fall flat on her back. She's crying in frustration, while he thinks it's ridiculous. She's trying to kill him, with only 44 points in martial prowess. He then snatches the hairpin from her hand, and says she got way too excited over a few words. Lifting her chin, he tells her this is not how a qualified spy should act. The poor girl is crying, thinking her assassination mission has failed. Suddenly she wakes up in a different place, wondering where she is. Someone approaches, and asks if the mission she was given was completed. She turns and sees her adoptive father. He extends his hand, and says that if she can't handle something so simple, she will have to be punished. She screams and suddenly wakes up beside Tu Ye. He asks if it was a nightmare, and she wants to know if he's going to kill her. He gets up and replies that he already said not only will he not kill her, but he'll continue playing this game, and let her pass on messages. After all, that's what makes everything more interesting. She then starts dipping ink, and writing an imperial decree. She keeps wondering what he's planning with that terrifying expression. She's certain he must be plotting something against her adoptive father again, but the expression is because writing with that cursed brush is just too difficult. He takes a deep breath, and she comments that was too fast. Humbly, he turns and asks for help writing something. Before she can respond, he's already placing his hand on her shoulder, telling her to sit there. Awkwardly, she says she doesn't know what decree he wants to write. He says it's a decree to strip all descendants of the Tu family of their surnames, and reduce them to commoners. She is confused, not understanding why he's banishing his own family. She asks why a servant like her has to write something like that. Tu Ye had asked the system for the easiest way to lose points, and it explained that it was by getting rid of the Tu family descendants. Since Tusu holds significant military influence, this would also make him appear as a cruel tyrant, perfect for his plan. Excitedly, he says that in this world, he'll be seen as a tyrant, and make everyone attack him. He quickly asks why she's hesitating, prompting her to apologize, and start writing. He then casually tells her that to satisfy her curiosity, he's doing this to make the game more difficult. Placing his hand on her face, he says that with this decree, he's now a solitary man, without family support, and with the reputation of a cruel tyrant. And of course the one to deliver this news to Xiao Zhu would be her. He tells her she can consider this information a gift. Poor Shu, having suffered so much all her life, is receiving a gift for the first time. Tu Ye is eager for her to carry out this task. While she knows she's being tricked, she can't help enjoying it. The scene then shifts to Zhu's residence. She knocks on the door, and he opens it, asking what it is. She enters and says she has information about Tu. She explains that Tu Ye signed a decree, stripping all members of the Tu family of their royal positions. The two ministers are shocked. Zhu turns to Shuwan, saying he had intended to place another Tu descendant in the boy's position, but this clearly ruins their plans. Chuwan then asks how she obtained this information. Embarrassed, she replies that His Majesty had her write the decree herself. Immediately Zhu turns and slaps her, calling her a bastard. She falls to the ground like trash, and he asks if she let the secret leak. Crying, she insists she would never do such a thing, but he points at her, accusing her of using the boy to destroy her own father. Chuwan places a hand on his shoulder, telling him to calm down. He warns that if Shu had leaked the information, she wouldn't even know about the decree. Zhu pauses. He then apologizes, saying a father can act wrongly, but asks not to be blamed. He turns to TM Yuan, and admits that their plan to install another prince has failed. Now it's time to proceed with their plan to gather all the courtiers, and humiliate that bastard during his first court session. Chuwan starts to comment on the plan, but then says it's fine, it's better to forget it. He knows Xiao Zhu isn't a very intelligent person, so it's better for him to plan things on his own. Back with our dear Tu Ye, with his finger in his nose, thinking the decree was ready. The problem is this is far from enough to drop the country's score to 0. So he's going to need new ideas. Then he remembers how an extremely large empire once fell. The leader had countless corrupt ministers and ignored all state affairs, but what truly led to the downfall was that he forcibly began taking women from the entire population, recruiting concubines from everyone. Considering that the most influential people here are the courtiers, he's going to steal everyone's women, which will surely make them furious and attack. Tu Ye loves the plan. Not only would he lose a lot of points, but he would also benefit. It's the perfect scheme. He then turns to his servant and orders him to bring Zmj Azu and Lichuan immediately. After a while, they arrive, and he opens his arms, saying how much he missed his ministers. Chuwan greets him respectfully, while Zhu however sits down and tells him he should start getting familiar with the court, now that he's taken the throne. The chubby man is excited. If he can get the entire court against Tu Ye, there's nothing the boy can do. Tu Ye however thinks that holding such an important meeting seems like the right thing to do, which is exactly why he doesn't want to do it. He responds that it sounds like too much work, and he just became emperor, so he doesn't really know how to do it properly. That's why he relies on his two trustworthy ministers. Shinan simply watches, realizing how clever the boy is. Refusing this request would ruin Jaya's plan, and mentioning trust made it impossible to decline. Xiao's schemes didn't stand a chance against him. Tu Ye smiles, thinking it's time for the concubine plan to help him lose points. He then says to leave court affairs for later, because today, he has something more important to discuss. It was shameful for him as emperor to have only one concubine, so he was going to recruit countless beautiful women and expand the harem. Even Zhu was impressed by how coldly the boy was making such a decision, before his father's body was even cold. Chuwan, on the other hand, is trying to understand what the boy is calculating with this harem plan. Tu Ye sits there smiling, saying this is an extremely important matter that must be resolved quickly. Seeing the ministers' faces, he knows the points will soon start dropping. Zhu agrees, but says that searching for women across the world would take too long. Tu Ye says that fine, they'll start today, but only within the capital. The chubby man is confused as to why Tu Ye is being so impatient. Meanwhile, Tuwan suspects that mentioning the capital means the boy's real objective lies there. Suddenly, Tu Ye strokes his chin and says he has an idea that will save a lot of time and effort. They'll start by selecting women related to the court ministers immediately. Shinan is shocked. The scene shifts outside, and Zhu comments that if Tu Ye truly is an idiot, he's ignoring state affairs and focusing on expanding his harem. But that's perfect. The kid is digging his own grave, so they won't need to do anything. However, suddenly, Tuwan snaps, shouting enough. If he keeps underestimating His Majesty like this, their families will surely be executed. Zhu Jia looks startled as Tuwan composes himself. He apologizes for losing his composure, but insists that the boy's harem plan is clearly a malicious strategy. First, the moment he ignored the court meeting showed he knew Xiao's intentions. Xiao Wu argues that they had just planned this right before entering, so it's impossible for Tu Ye to know. Chuan says that only proves how advanced his planning is. Not only did he refuse to discuss court affairs, but creating this harem is obviously a cohesive strategy that follows another plan. Zhu Jiazu, confused, asks what he means by cohesive strategies. Chuan explains that the boy rejected the court meeting because he's confident he can control the court without meeting them. By taking women from the court ministers' families, he gains leverage through marriage alliances with all of them. This way, both of them lose all their influence. Zhu Jiazu asks what they should do now. Chuan smiles and says what they need to do is help the boy expand the Zhua family bloodline. He spreads his arms wide and says that as loyal servants they will give the boy the perfect opportunity to fulfill this desire. A few days later, inside the imperial hall, Chuan informs the prince that all his family members have lost their royal status, except for his brother, who is still outside. The prince says that's not important, they can talk about that later. First he wants to know how the selection is going. Chuan reports that the ministers did everything they could to fulfill his command, but time was limited. Tuye claps his hands and tells him to take a look. The curtain opens, revealing a legion of women before him. The boy is literally drooling, saying that this is truly paradise. All the women begin paying their respects to his majesty. Tuye sneaks up behind Shan Yuan and asks if any of these concubines particularly enjoy combat behind closed doors. A bit confused, Tamwen says he doesn't quite understand what he means. Tuye finds it odd. Clearly, even if the man doesn't grasp his words, the context should explain itself. Meanwhile, Tuwan wonders if the prince is starting to suspect something among the concubines. He brought all are from influential families, except for two women. The one in red is Fantu, and the one in purple is Yusa. About a decade ago, when the emperor ruled the Daqian dynasty, the families of these two girls offended him, and were completely wiped out on impulse. Chuan saved the two girls from execution. For the past decade, he has kept their identities secret and raised them by his side. They inherited the ancient talents of their families, making them perfect pawns in his hands. In a private room, Chewan calls for Tamwen She. He informs them that the Daqian emperor, who had their families executed, is now dead. However, since they couldn't take revenge personally, he asks if they still hold. Resentment fills them as they reply, they are willing to die 1,000 times in the name of vengeance. For Tone, this was the perfect chance to place them beside the prince without raising suspicion. With a sparkle in his eye, Tuye remarks how those two stand out. Man, their body types are kind of unbalanced compared to each other, aren't they? He thinks. But Shaynan starts sweating, wondering if the boy has already noticed. The system revealed all their talents. Shu was adopted by Taemin, and intends to kill him, and destroy the nation. Obviously, Fantu has different attributes, but her goal is the same. Tuye thinks Chewan made the perfect move by sending these two, a snake and a scorpion, right next to the tyrant, destined to help bring down the country. He approaches them, smiles, and asks for their names. One of the girls introduces herself, and Tuye moves closer to Shay, commenting that she seems a bit nervous. Shaynan is drenched in sweat, fearing her introverted nature might expose her true intentions. Tuye lifts her chin gently, telling her not to be afraid, assuring her he's very calm and approachable. He keeps teasing until she suddenly says she can't take it anymore. Out of nowhere, she collapses, seemingly fainting. What the system didn't mention is that Shay has difficulty controlling her emotions when touched and faints out of embarrassment. Tuye stares in shock, while Tuwan looks even more terrified. All Tuye wanted was to show interest in the girl Chuan brought. He didn't expect her tolerance for physical contact to be so low, ruining his presentation. Now Tuwan fears her identity might be exposed, and will likely try to replace her. Falling to his knees, Tuwan apologizes, admitting it was a terrible mistake to include this woman in the selection. He says he deserves to die, and will remove her immediately. But Tuye raises his hand and says that won't be necessary. He lifts her into his arms, smirking, saying he quite likes women who can't handle a little touch. Chuwan's choices have pleased him. Shuzan finally thinks this tyrant really is a pervert. Shaynan wipes his face and thanks his majesty. Meanwhile, Tuye casually decides that tonight she will serve him in bed. Fantu stands by silently, vowing that he will soon pay for all of this. Suddenly, Shay glances at her, and both seem confused. He wonders why she seems so pleased. Maybe she's also eager to serve him tonight. He then declares that tonight the three of them will join him. Without wasting time, the scene transitions to the bedroom. Looking at the two, Tuye comments that among the palace beauties, they truly are the most stunning. Not to mention, the system warned that they're getting closer to him with the goal of destroying the country, which is perfect. They also have numerous strong attributes, having been trained by Tannen. The only issue is that Tuye only knows their basic information. He has no clue what their actual skills are, or if they could help in bringing down the kingdom. Fantu glances back, wondering what this tyrant is thinking. The two girls exchange looks, determined to sacrifice themselves for their cause. They assume they'll use every method to humiliate them, and force them to submit to his tyranny. Back in the present moment, Tuye suddenly says the time has come, but he just stands there staring, making Fantu even more anxious. He specifically requested both of them, which was suspicious. They remember Che-won when saying he prepared the perfect way to hide their identities, so that shouldn't be an issue. However, they need to be careful since Tuye is extremely sharp and not easily deceived by beauty. Plus, he has Shu, who is not only their ally, but also a rival. If they want to earn his trust, they need to prove they're worth more than just their appearance. Tuye steps closer and asks if they know how to do that. Back to the present, Tuye asks what the two were thinking so deeply about. He says he'll ask once more if they have any special talents or abilities. This was the moment they had been waiting for, as Tan had instructed. Shay then speaks up, saying she's skilled in predicting parts of the future, stargazing, script analysis, and has talent with talismans, fanguli, healthcare, medicine, and alchemy. Tuye is genuinely impressed, and finally, she mentions she has experience in more intimate skills behind closed doors. However, Fantu finds it ironic that she would say that after fainting from a simple touch. Tuye then turns to Fantu and asks what she knows. Fantu notices from his expression that he isn't satisfied with Shea's answer. A key detail is that she comes from a family of merchants. Since childhood, she was involved in negotiations alongside her grandfather. Because of these environments, she became skilled in finance, calculations, and understanding human nature. However, her grandfather taught her that such skills could raise suspicion among the powerful. She must seek revenge while preserving herself. In other words, she needs to show her value while appearing innocent. So she tells Tuye that she's a weak woman with no special abilities, talents, or powers. She decides not to reveal her financial skills or knowledge of human behavior, trying to appear like an innocent young lady. She says she came from a wealthy family, but her parents have passed away. The only thing she has left is the wealth they left behind. Tuye wonders if this girl is basically Batman, an orphan, rich and left behind. But after analyzing the situation, he sees a way to. He then asks her how, as the ruler of the nation, he should be interested in her wealth. He suggests it might be a good idea to put her in charge of the national treasury immediately. She was startled by the suggestion. Tuye's plan is that considering she's a spoiled girl from a rich family, she must be terrible at managing money. Putting her in charge of finances is the perfect way to trigger an economic collapse. Then he turns to Shea and says that since she's talented in studies, he'll appoint her as the national teacher. Additionally, she'll be responsible for his longevity through alchemy. Shea is utterly shocked by this offer. He's certain that if she manages medical affairs, a lot of people will end up poisoned. Then he adds that now that she's the national teacher, he always wants to see her in a Tai's row, all because he thinks cosplay is pretty cool. Shea is terrified, while Tuye's nose is bleeding from excitement. The scoundrel is already imagining that if there's going to be cosplay, it should be in abundance. Having a cosplay harem in this martial world isn't such a bad idea. The scene shifts to the AO study house. This time, Tuye is writing an imperial edict. It also seems like he's crafted a somewhat fake replica of the Jade Seal. Apparently what he wrote is a scheme to kill Tu. Once his brother dies, the vile Tuye will have a way to deal with the others. Suddenly, he tells someone to enter. General Zelen appears, awaiting orders. The chubby emperor hands him the decree, and orders him to go to Linting City and deliver it to Tu. He must personally witness Tu taking his own life and bring back his head. The general simply acknowledges the order. Outside on the rooftop, someone sends a message through an eagle to inform Lord Che-won. The eagle flies across the moon, revealing an army advancing through the forest. However, a cloaked group perches among the treetops with the eagle landing on someone's shoulder. A girl wearing a butterfly mask tells them to prepare, but she's not the brightest and stumbles, falling and screaming for everyone to move. She crashes to the ground, and it seems this happens often since the others say they're getting used to it. Lying awkwardly in the bushes, she orders them to attack. Zed Sin, riding his horse, suddenly notices a rope below. He tries to change direction, but it's too late, and everyone falls off. One tries to stand, but is struck from behind. Assassins descend from the trees, throwing kit at him ahead. Another warns that Lord Shaewon ordered no one to escape. Zed Sin demands to know how rebels dare intercept an imperial decree. The figure stands still for a moment before lunging forward, cutting down two soldiers, but then he sees wings ahead, and from above, a voice taunts him, asking if that's all he can do. In an instant she's behind him with a blade at his neck. Jun declares they are members of the Kung Guard. Members of the Kung Guard. Without responding, the woman finishes him off, and one of the men retrieves a box. He announces that, as expected, the imperial decree was found on this man. Lord Shaewon confirms it's the decree ordering Prince Tu to commit suicide, undoubtedly sent by that cruel ruler. One soldier hesitates, asking if they're going too far by stopping an imperial decree. Something swiftly flies past his head, which reminds him of the true mission of the guard. They operate in the shadows to protect the late Emperor Qin Jun's will. They act ruthlessly, using the bloodiest methods, but they must not forget the old alliance with the Emperor. An emperor who, before his death, declared Tu as the crown prince. It is their duty to ensure that this happens. However, Tu Ye not only stole the throne, but is also trying to kill Tu. She shreds the decree and declares that this proves it. The new emperor is an enemy. The Kung Guard must eliminate him. She orders the area to be cleared, and ensures no information leaks. Tu is still far to the north, and even on horseback, it would take him at least 4 days to return. During this time, Tu Ye wouldn't know whether the decree succeeded or not. Before this could be exposed, Shaewon plans to kill Tu Ye. Back with Tu Ye, coughing after a fit, he wonders which of the lovely ladies is thinking so much about him. 5 days later, we return to the Tu residence. He still hasn't received any news. Obviously the messenger was killed. Shimon approaches and asks what he's waiting for. Tu Ye casually responds that he's not waiting for anything and questions why Tu-won took so long. Chu-won raises a finger and says he brings good news and bad news. Zedzu interrupts, asking what could be worse than their current situation. Shen Yuan calmly explains that their plan to forge the imperial decree and kill Tu has failed. Zedzu is shocked and grabs him, accusing him of speaking nonsense. But Chu-won slaps his hand away and reminds Zeds that they're on the same side, so they should stop pretending. He reveals that Jin was intercepted outside the city 5 days ago, and the one who killed him was none other than the Kung Guard's leader, Shaewon. The chubby man is confused, wondering why the late emperor's Shaewon shiz him to wait for the good news. Shen Zeds believes Tu Ye sent the decree, making him her next target. Zedzu Yu celebrates, but then pauses. He questions how anyone knows this when the Kung Guard operates independently. Chu-won simply says he has his methods, and that Zedzu Yu shouldn't worry about it. They got lucky. This time, they must seize the opportunity. This is the perfect chance to restore the balance they desperately need, especially since His Majesty is hosting a grand banquet today, with many guests. If Shae wanted to strike, tonight was the perfect moment. As Shaewon leaps under the moonlight, Time notes that the guard is weakened, ensuring their success. Even if the assassination fails, Tu Ye would grow to hate his brother, shattering the balance. Zedzu cheers, saying that Tu Ye would be killed, and Tu would take the blame. Shaewon agrees, this would be the perfect outcome, but now it's up to fate. Zedzu Shaewon turs how such a plan could possibly fail, but Chuwon is already leaving, saying he only came to inform them, and asks to be excused. As he descends the stairs, he ponders that the only factor he can't predict is how His Majesty will react. Moreover, the two girls he placed beside Tu Ye despise him, and tonight would be their perfect chance to strike. But no matter how skilled they are, could they outsmart His Majesty? All he hopes is that he's not being overly paranoid. Meanwhile, in the palace hall, the cosplay banquet has begun. Right in the middle, King stands out. He is dressed as Nezuko, and Tu as Saber, or so it seems. The girls compliment each other, while others chat with them. Apparently, the participants are competing for Tu Ye's attention. Some even regret not wearing something more modest. A soft step echoes through the hall. Lady Shaewon, the Kung Guard leader, has arrived. thinking that this ruler truly is a shameless pervert with bizarre tastes.
Oh,
She surveys the hall, however she wonders what's happening, since none of the women seem to have any martial prowess. Yet the competitive gazes among the harem candidates are sharp and intimidating. She overhears two women whispering that wearing such revealing clothes must mean she's full of ambition. A woman in green compliments Shayla's outfit, calling it creative, but in the harem competition, family background mattered most. Shayla feels like killing all these women, but restrains herself. Her target is someone else.
oh.
Suddenly, the crowd cheers as His Majesty arrives. He enters in style. It turns out the girls in cosplay weren't Shaylin Toes, but other competitors. He blows a kiss, declaring his love for all of them. Smiling, they respond that they love him too. But Tu Ye quickly notices something peculiar. Of course it's Shaylin. The system already flagged her as the Kungard leader, and a supporter of Tulun. Immediately, Shaylin senses his gaze on her and wonders if she's been discovered. She discreetly reaches for a kunai, thinking it's time to end this pervert. Suddenly she shouts to His Majesty, and leaps toward him, declaring it's time to face death. The other women gasp, questioning how she dares speak that way before His Majesty. They start wondering if this is the true essence of this cosplay banquet. 5 days earlier, Tu Ye had gathered all the women to inform them about the upcoming competition. Naturally, one of them asked what exactly a cosplay banquet was. He casually explained it was just an event where they would wear various outfits, play games, and have fun with him. Now it all made sense. The sisters thought Shay was just acting like an assassin to impress him. Shaylin charged forward, declaring she would die, but Tu Ye simply blew her a heart-shaped kiss. One of the women in the harem grumbled that this wretched woman was pretending to be an assassin, knowing full well that dangerous men were watching. Shaylin glanced sideways, and saw Udiye leaping at her, determined not to let Shay win with a stunt like that. Shaylin grabbed her by the arm and slammed her to the ground. Confused, she wondered if these women were all insane. They had no cultivation yet dared to attack her. Maybe this was the true essence of this so-called roleplay.
Oh.
Suddenly, all the women rushed at Shaylin, declaring they wouldn't let her steal their spotlight. They grabbed her, pulling her away, insisting they must protect His Majesty from a lunatic like her. Being pushed around, Shayla couldn't understand why these women were fighting so fiercely for this man, but gripping her dagger tightly, she decided if this was their choice, she wouldn't show mercy. Seeing Shayla prepared to strike, Tu Ye panicked. These women were vital resources for his role as a tyrant. He quickly ordered her to stop and spare the girls. Shaylin muttered to herself that this perverted ruler was bold to speak to her like that. She then asked if he was willing to die for them. The women smiled and confidently said they were willing to die for him. But Tu Ye knew he couldn't die yet. The nation still had too many points. He apologized, explaining his time to die hadn't come. Shayla scoffed, saying his words were empty, but Tu Ye stepped closer and promised to abdicate the throne to Tulun. He knew she was there to assassinate him, and paved the way for Tu to ascend. Shay wondered if he already knew her identity, and whether this was all a trap. She demanded to know his true intentions. Raising his arms, he admitted he was tired of pretending. His only goal was to be a lazy and incompetent ruler. The throne meant nothing compared to a harem full of beautiful women, and he was willing to give it up to someone more capable. The system immediately notified him that this speech had triggered a story route, where the nation would be destroyed. The conditions for this event required a massive army outside the capital, and him abdicating the throne to a general. If his plan succeeded, he would lose 1,000 points, dropping him to 0. Shayla suspected he was lying. She also knew no one in this world could resist such power, especially a pervert like him. She coldly told him to forget it. Whether he was serious or not, she would kill him and hand the throne to Tusu. Tu, confused by her relentless desire to kill him, tried to strengthen his persuasion. He warned that if he died here, Tu's reputation would be tarnished, and he wouldn't be seen as a legitimate emperor. Everything he was doing was out of love for his brother. This move triggered a flashback of the late emperor. He'd once asked Shishio if after pacifying the north he had become a good emperor. She replied that with his knowledge and military talent, he would be remembered as a wise ruler for generations. However, he lamented that his talent was only suited for conquest, and such a ruler wasn't needed in this dynasty's future. Shishio assured him that an emperor like him would always be necessary, yet he simply turned away, admitting he knew his time was short, a fact that wasn't necessarily bad for the dynasty. What he wanted was a successor who didn't need to be talented, even someone lazy or careless, as long as they were tolerant and sought peace over success and greed. Hearing this, Shishio always believed the true successor should be Prince Tusu, but based on the late emperor's words, Tu Ye seemed to fit that role more. Shaken, she scolded herself, refusing to be swayed by a few words. The rightful heir to the dynasty was Tusu, the legitimate son. She vowed to take Tu Ye to Tusu, and let him decide his fate. She ordered Tu Ye to come with her to Linting City to perform the abdication ceremony. For Tu Ye this was perfect, with the system warning the story was heading in the right direction. But suddenly someone blocked their path. It was Judge She holding a glowing talisman, demanding to know what right She had to abduct the emperor. She radiated a purple aura, surprising everyone. Shishio, realizing everything Tu Ye said might have been a ploy, grinned as she tightened her grip on her dagger, cursing the tyrant for toying with people's hearts. Yet despite seeming to have a grand plan, Tu Ye was utterly confused. He wondered what kind of situation he had just gotten himself into. Tu reassures Tu Ye not to worry, claiming She's talisman abilities are incredible. She insists Shishio won't lose to that assassin, and with both of them protecting him, he won't be taken anywhere. But Tu Ye wonders when he ever asked these girls to protect him. Flashback to a few nights earlier, Channy Went is seen talking to the two girls. He asks if they know their true mission after getting close to Tu Ye in the palace. Shishio confidently replies that she plans to find the right moment to kill that perverted tyrant and avenge her family. However, Chuan explains that many people have died, but killing him once isn't enough. Their primary mission is to bring complete destruction to the entire dynasty. For now, they must ensure Tu Ye stays alive. Both girls are confused by this. Chuan clarifies that Tu Ye always appeared incompetent and foolish. That's why Tenwon helped him ascend to the throne while Tusu was leading the army. Apparently Tenwon revealed the entire story. She asks if she's supposed to become a concubine and manipulate Tu Ye into actions that will destroy the Chen dynasty. Chuan confirms that's exactly it, but he warns that was only the initial plan. After taking the throne, Tu Ye changed completely. His incompetence and idiocy were merely a disguise, making him much harder to predict. That's why for now, they must stay close to him and discover his true weakness. She was startled. It was the first time she had seen Chuan this serious. She couldn't tell if he was afraid or excited. Chuan then addresses Fontu, praising her intelligence and trusting she'll adapt quickly. Fontu, skilled in talisman and alchemy, is strong in combat but simple-minded. Their combined strengths make them perfect for executing the most important part of the plan. Tu Ye must never stand beside Prince Tusu. Back in the present, King chuckles, saying Chuan was right. Tu Ye's act of incompetence was only a facade. She was a woman from the Kungar, and created this bizarre cosplay event to lure her in. Once she got close, he crafted the perfect chance to make her take him to Tusu, setting the stage for revenge against the ministers. What Tu Ye didn't know was that She Yuan had already anticipated this, and placed them both by his side to try to stop She from continuing the duel. Fontu, frustrated as Tala giggles, suddenly notices something odd and glances back. Tu starts whistling, pretending to mind her own business. But Tu Ye immediately realizes what's going on. Since both girls were sent by Tenya, they won't let him abdicate the throne to Tusu. The problem is that this event was perfect for Tu Ye to destroy the empire, so he needed to find a way to control She. His expression changes as he remembers She's greatest weakness. As She steps back to compose herself, Tu Ye sneaks up behind her and grabs her waist. Lifting her chin, he declares that a supreme leader like him couldn't rely on concubines for protection. She immediately turns red, tries to speak, but faints. Tu Ye smirks, tells She to seize the opportunity now that it's presented itself. She pauses, confused. Clearly there had to be more tricks from this tyrant. Tu Ye urges her to move, asking what she's waiting for. With little choice, Shay decides to capture him first and figure things out. Later, Tu Ye celebrates finally getting what he wanted, but as he approaches, Shay collapses. Unbeknownst to Tu Ye, Shay has a hidden trait when she completely loses consciousness from physical contact. Any woman who touches the man who caused it becomes her mortal enemy. Shay regains herself, glaring at the other girls. She slowly approaches, radiating a dark aura. Though hesitant, she crosses her hands and performs a jutsu, activating a third-level fire spell. A flame appears in her hand, forming a massive fireball. Shay was startled, and Taouz watches in shock. Tu Ye panics, realizing that if Shay dies, his entire plan will fall apart. He rushes forward, pushing Shay's side, yelling for her to get out of the way. At that moment, Shay unleashes her attack, causing a massive explosion in the palace, and somehow they kiss. Wait, what is this? A 2003 anime. Shay turns as red as a tomato, ready to yell at him but slams her head on the floor and faints. Smoke rises, leaving both of them sprawled out. Tu stands stunned, until Tu Ye suddenly appears. The system alerts him that the current event has failed. However, a new event, Circle of the Pillar, has been activated. This event triggers when an assassin attempts to kill him inside the main hall, and a third person proficient in medicine tries to protect